There comes a moment, often in the quiet after someone has left, when you realize the real question isn't just how to get them back, but why they pulled away in the first place. And even deeper than that, what your energy has been silently saying to them this entire time. In this video, I want to share something most men never get taught. Not just how to bring someone back into your life, but how to become the kind of man who doesn't have to chase, prove, or perform to be seen. The kind of man whose energy, calm, grounded, unshaken, becomes its own kind of gravity. And yes, when that shift happens, people notice. Even the ones who said they were done. Some don't just return, they reach out, pursue, even beg to be close to that steadiness again. But that only happens when you stop leaking need and start leading from presence. This isn't about tricks or tactics. It's about something deeper, your relationship with yourself and the energy you carry, whether you're speaking or silent. So if you're ready to understand how your energy is either pulling her back or pushing her away, and more importantly, how to come home to your own center again, stay with me. And if you're new here, or you feel this message reaching something inside you, like this video, subscribe to Stoic Station, and let's walk this path together. Now let's begin. There's a certain kind of silence that follows a loss, not the external kind, but the one that settles inside your chest, between heartbeats. It's subtle, but constant, and no matter how well you hide it, it speaks. The ache of missing her doesn't just live in your thoughts, it echoes through your posture, your breath, your presence. Even when your mouth says nothing, your energy carries the weight of everything left unsaid. You may not even notice it, but when you're focused on what you don't have, what you've lost, or what used to be, you're sending a signal out into the world. And that signal is made of lack, not hope, not love. Lack. That's the emotional frequency you're tuning into. And whether you realize it or not, people around you can feel it, especially her. But there's something no one teaches you when you're going through this, something most men miss. That signal you're sending, it's not permanent, it's not a life sentence, it's a pattern. And patterns can be broken. Because that energy of lack, it doesn't come from now. It comes from memory. It comes from clinging to something that once made you feel whole and fearing you'll never feel that way again. The moment you start shifting your awareness away from what's missing and toward what's still here, something starts to change. Your energy moves from desperation to groundedness, from need to presence, from scarcity to strength. And this doesn't mean you forget her. It means you stop abandoning yourself for the idea of her. One of the most powerful practices I ever learned was deceptively simple. Each morning, before anything else, I asked myself, what am I grateful for that has nothing to do with her? Some days it was a hot shower. Other days it was my own breath, my brother's laugh, the silence in the early morning light. That practice didn't fix the pain overnight, but it rooted me in something deeper than memory. It brought me back to the present. And that presence, that's where your power lives. Because here's the deeper truth. We're all energetically connected. You can feel when someone is thinking about you with love, just as you can sense when their thoughts are filled with resentment or regret. So can she. That's why longing doesn't draw her in. It pushes her further away. Because even when you're silent, the energy of need reaches out like a hand trying to pull her back. And no one wants to be pulled. Wanting her back doesn't make you magnetic. Becoming the man who no longer needs her does. And I know how that sounds. It feels cold, maybe even cruel. But it's not about shutting off your heart. It's about opening it wider than this one relationship. It's about being grounded enough to say, I still care, but I'm no longer drowning in it. That calm, that quiet shift in emotional gravity, that's what people feel. That's what makes her pause and ask herself, what changed? But none of this can happen if your beliefs are still rooted in fear. And this is where most men get stuck. They do the surface work. They exercise, they stay busy, they go silent. But underneath it all, the story hasn't changed. They're still carrying a belief that says, she's gone, so I'm not enough. And that belief leaks through everything. You'll hear it in the voices around you. Friends will tell you to move on. Family might say she was never right for you. At first, those words sting. They feel like judgment. But what if they're not? What if those voices are simply echoing what you already believe to be true? We don't always realize how often we outsource our inner truth to the people around us. But the things they say, especially when they hit a nerve, are often just reflections of the silent story we've been repeating to ourselves. The belief that we're not worthy unless she returns. The fear that we'll never find something like that again. The doubt that maybe, just maybe, it really was our fault. But here's the liberating part. If they're reflecting something inside of you, then you have the power to change the reflection. Not by convincing them, not by forcing a new narrative, but by rewriting the one that lives within you. So the next time someone questions your healing, doubts your path, or tells you to just move on, pause. Don't argue, don't explain. Just ask yourself quietly, is this a mirror of something I still believe? If it is, then there's your work. And that work isn't about proving them wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you were never broken to begin with. This isn't about pretending you're fine. It's about anchoring into the man you're becoming. One breath, one choice, one quiet moment at a time. And as you begin to live from that place, not to attract her, but to return to yourself, the signal you send out to the world begins to change. And that signal, that's what they feel. That's what she feels. And more importantly, that's what you begin to feel too. And when that realization sinks in, that it's not just about her, not just about the silence or the unanswered questions, something inside you starts to soften. Maybe for the first time, you begin to understand that what's been keeping you stuck isn't what she did or didn't do. It's what you've continued to hold on to, without even noticing. You start to feel the weight of your own thoughts, the quiet tension behind your silence, the way you've been hoping she feels your absence, all while you're still tangled in the emotions you never gave yourself permission to release. And beneath all of it, there's this deeper knowing that the power you're searching for out there has been waiting inside you all along. That's when you stop asking, when will she come back? And start asking, what kind of man do I want to be, whether she does or not? Because that's the real turning point. That moment when you choose to stop performing strength and actually begin living it. Not by closing yourself off, not by pretending you don't care, but by being honest about what you feel and choosing to move forward anyway. It's a quiet kind of strength, one that doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't try to manipulate an outcome. It just is. It holds space, it breathes, it lets go, not to lose, but to finally return home. And in that space, the healing begins. There's something most men overlook when they're trying to make sense of a woman's silence. They forget that energy speaks before words ever do. You might think you're doing the right thing by staying quiet, keeping your distance, and not reaching out. But silence isn't neutral. It carries a temperature, it has a tone, and whether you realize it or not, your silence is saying something. Silence that comes from pain, from resentment, from that desperate hope she'll notice your absence. That kind of silence creates walls, not bridges. It repels. She can feel when you're stewing in frustration, even if she doesn't hear a word from you. On the other hand, when your silence is rooted in peace, in real emotional detachment, in quiet strength, It becomes magnetic. It tells her that you're not waiting for her to validate you. You've found your own center, and that's rare. That kind of stillness draws people in. So how do you know which energy you're projecting? Ask yourself, what's sitting underneath my silence? Is it a storm I'm holding in, or is it a choice I've made with calm intention? If it's the former, you owe it to yourself to release what you've been carrying, not to fix anything, not to get her back, but to make space for your own peace. One of the most powerful things I ever did, and one I recommend to any man in this place, was to write a letter I never intended to send. I wrote everything I couldn't say out loud. All the confusion, the hurt, the anger, the guilt, every contradiction, every unanswered question. I poured it onto paper, not to justify myself, but to empty the weight. Then I burned it, watched the smoke rise, and with it, all the things I had been silently clutching. There was no closure in her reply, because the closure came from me letting go of what was no longer mine to carry. Letting go isn't about walking away with your chin up, pretending you're unaffected. That's ego. Letting go, real letting go, is soft and sober. It's you telling yourself the truth. Even if she never comes back, I'll be okay. That's not weakness. That's power. That's the kind of emotional security that cannot be shaken by silence, by rejection, or by the uncertainty of the future. The paradox is, the moment you stop waiting, the moment you stop hoping she'll fill the empty space, that's when the shift begins. That's when you stop leaking energy. That's when you stop handing over your worth to someone else's decision. And sometimes, yes, that's exactly when she comes back. But here's the thing. By that time, you're no longer the man who needs her to feel whole. You've reclaimed yourself. Detachment is often misunderstood. People think it means shutting down, becoming cold, no longer caring. But that's not detachment. That's defense. True detachment is full of life. It's rich in feeling. It's the ability to hold love in your heart without needing it to look a certain way. It's the strength to want someone while knowing you don't need them. That emotional freedom is what makes you powerful and incredibly attractive. But you can't get there without building a relationship with the man in the mirror. And that begins with self-love. I know that term might sound soft, maybe even foreign to some of us, especially those who were taught that love is something you earn from others, not something you give yourself. But real love, the kind that roots you, stabilizes you, builds you, starts within. Self-love isn't about self-indulgence. It's about self-respect. It's about meeting your own needs with the same care and consistency you once gave to her. You don't have to overhaul your life in a day. Just begin with presence. Carve out 1 hour a week, just for you. No phone, no noise, just you, a journal, maybe a walk in nature. And ask, what part of myself have I been neglecting that needs my care? That question alone can crack open parts of you that have been silently waiting to be seen again. The parts that got lost while trying to be enough for someone else. When you return to yourself, something beautiful happens. The tension in your body eases. The noise in your mind quiets. And your energy begins to change. You walk differently. You speak with more clarity. You stop chasing, because you've realized there's nothing outside of you that completes what's already whole within. And as your vibration rises, as you begin to enjoy your own company, as you start building a life that feels meaningful again, something subtle shifts in the air. She may feel it, she may notice, she may come back, but by then you won't be waiting for that to happen, because you will have become a man who knows how to love without attachment. A man who's no longer moved by absence, but anchored by his own presence. That's when everything changes. And as you begin to stand more firmly in that stillness, not the kind that hides from feeling, but the kind that no longer flinches in its presence, you start to notice something shift beneath the surface. What once felt like an ache you couldn't escape now feels like a space being cleared. The emptiness that once demanded to be filled becomes a quiet invitation. You stop needing her to return just to feel okay. You stop waiting for something outside of you to rescue what was always within your reach, because now your peace isn't dependent on her presence. It's rooted in your own, and that changes everything. That's when a deeper question begins to rise, not just how do I let go, but who am I when I stop chasing, stop proving, stop performing? The answer to that doesn't come in a single moment. It comes slowly as you begin to align with something older, stronger, and more honest within you. This is the moment when living for others no longer feels sustainable, when the weight of being someone else's version of you becomes too heavy to carry. What comes next is the return to your own truth, and that's where the real power begins to build. There's a quiet kind of betrayal that happens when a man starts living for the approval of others. It doesn't happen all at once. It's subtle. You compromise something small, a value, a truth, an instinct, thinking it'll make things smoother or keep someone around. And maybe it works for a while, but piece by piece, you start to drift away from yourself, until one day you look in the mirror and realize you no longer recognize the man staring back. It's a painful realization, especially when you've tied your worth to how well you can be what others want. But the truth is, no amount of being agreeable will bring you peace, not if you're abandoning your core in the process. You weren't made to be molded by someone else's expectations. You were made to stand firm in what matters to you. Because when you start living according to your own values, not in defiance but in quiet alignment, something shifts. You begin to walk differently, speak differently. You no longer ask, will this make them stay? Instead you ask, does this stay true to who I am? And that's the question that frees you. Many men try to keep peace on the outside by creating war within, but peace that costs your integrity will always leave you empty. Real peace is when your inner compass and your outer actions finally match. When the man you are in private is the same man you are in public. That's where power lives. That's where freedom begins. And yes, some people may not understand the new you, especially if they were attached to the version of you who always said yes, who always made room, who always put himself last. When you start to reclaim your space, your time, your voice, they might feel the difference, they might push back. But that's not a sign that something's wrong. It's a sign that something's working. Because the world doesn't just respond to what you say, it responds to what you are. When you change internally, everything around you starts to shift. People sense it. Some lean in, some fall away. And that's okay. Not everyone is meant to walk the path with you, but the ones who remain or return will do so because they're responding to who you truly are, not the mask you wore. This is why self-love isn't a tactic. It's not something you do to get them back. If you're loving yourself as a strategy, you're still in the energy of lack, still hoping your growth will be validated by someone else's return. But real self-love is unconditional. It's quiet. It's deeply rooted. You do it not because you're trying to attract someone, but because you're finally beginning to see that you are worthy, whether they return or not. You give yourself the care you once waited for. You offer your own heart the kindness you gave too freely to others. You stop looking outward for permission to feel valuable, and you begin to live in a way that says, I don't need to be chosen. I already chose myself. This shift changes everything, because love that comes from fullness is far more powerful than love that comes from need. You no longer operate from fear, fear of being left, fear of being overlooked, fear of being forgotten. Instead, you operate from truth, and truth is magnetic. So yes, sometimes they do come back, And if they do, it's not because you chased, begged, or proved yourself. It's because something in your silence felt different. Something in your energy became unfamiliar, not cold, but whole, not distant, but elevated. They feel it, even if they can't explain it. And they're drawn to it, because what's rare is irresistible. But here's the part no one tells you. By the time they do come back, you've likely outgrown the need for their return. You're no longer the man who was waiting at the edge of hope. You've become the man who walks in quiet certainty, who's built something real inside himself. And that's what matters most, because this was never about getting them back. That was the surface. The deeper work, the real journey, was about getting yourself back, living by your values, letting the world mirror the strength you now carry, loving yourself not as a strategy, but as a sacred standard. And when that becomes your new foundation, when your days are no longer shaped by longing but by presence, you don't need anyone to complete you. You're already whole. And from that place, everything changes. I've lived through the kind of silence I just shared with you. Not the kind where everything outside is quiet, but the kind where something inside you has gone still, where the weight of longing becomes so familiar that you mistake it for identity. I've been the man who waited for the text, who rehearsed what I'd say if she came back, who measured his worth by whether she still cared. And for a while, I believed that if I could just do the right things, stay silent enough, be strong enough, glow up enough, she would feel it and return. But what I didn't understand then, and what I had to learn the hard way, is that the energy I was sending out wasn't strength. It was absence, not just hers, but mine. I had abandoned myself. That was the turning point. The moment I stopped asking, "How do I get her back?" and started asking, "Who am I when I stop needing to be needed?" That one question changed the entire direction of my life. And everything I've shared with you, from the energy you broadcast, to the silence you carry, to the values you live by, all of it is rooted in that one truth. This journey was never about her. It was always about you. So let's make it clear, you're not here to perform strength. You're here to embody it, not through stoic denial of emotion, but through radical honesty and unwavering presence. You don't become magnetic by pretending not to care. You become magnetic when you finally care enough about yourself to stop shrinking for someone else's comfort. The truth is, if your self-worth is hanging on the edge of someone else's decision, you will always feel like you're waiting to be chosen. But the moment you begin choosing yourself, not as a tactic, not as a test, but as a birthright, everything begins to shift. And that's the deeper lesson. You don't rebuild your life to get her back. You rebuild your life so that if she ever returns, she's meeting a man who no longer needs her to feel whole, a man who walks with peace, even in her absence, a man who holds love in his heart without trying to control where it lands, a man who has made his values his compass and his presence his home. So here's my advice. Not from a pedestal, but from a place of shared experience. Don't wait to start living again. Don't wait for her to reach out to start showing up for yourself. The life you're avoiding, the peace you're postponing, the man you're meant to be, none of that is waiting on her return. It's waiting on your return. To your truth, to your standards, to your stillness. Because the minute you begin anchoring into that, not to be seen, but because you finally see yourself, you become the kind of man who no longer wonders if she'll come back. You become the kind of man who doesn't need her to. And from that place, everything changes. That's not a promise that love will return the way you imagined. It's a promise that you will. And in the end, that's the only return that ever truly mattered. If this spoke to something real in you, take a moment to explore what's next below. This journey is yours. Go at your own pace. And if you found value here, like this video, Subscribe to Stoic Station and stay connected. I'll be back soon. Until then, stay steady and stay true to yourself.